Hi, and welcome to The Right Side. My name is Chris Pareja, and I'm your host this evening. And on this show, what we do is we cover today's most important or controversial news and issues from an admittedly conservative perspective. Tonight, I'm joined by Kevin McGary. He's the president of the Frederick Douglass Foundation, as well as the founder of VoteGod2012.com, and has a number of other issues that are important to him. This evening, we'll be talking about the importance of religion or faith in the political arena. So, Kevin, thanks for joining us this evening.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, so let's get right into things. Have you always been highly political, or was this a transition that happened along the way through life?
This is really a transition. I wouldn't say I was completely apolitical, but I haven't been political in the sense that I really haven't followed politics up until maybe the past 8 years. And that's when I followed it pretty closely. And so it hasn't always been my pattern. I was born and raised in inner city San Francisco and was fully indoctrinated in liberal ideology and, born in sort of lower middle class type setting. And so politically it was always just, pull the lever for the D, right? So. But over the past maybe 20 years is when I started to make more prudent decisions based upon my own principles.
Okay.
Over the past 8 years, I followed it pretty closely.
Okay, so you've mentioned 8 years twice now. So tell me about what happened 8 years ago that made the focus more intense for you.
I think what happened was just the condition of America, not just in the pure geopolitical perspective, but just the soul of America. As a Christian, I began to sense that there was a real shift happening, and a lot of the, for lack of a better term, just the soul of America seemed to be quickly or rapidly eroding. Okay. And that really caused an urgency in my own gut. And from that, I started, sort of closely monitoring who's who, what's happening within our government. What's an appropriate intervention to help America, what's not, those types of things.
Okay. Yep. And so you said you used to vote pretty reliably, pull the D lever, meaning voting Democrat. At that point, would you have considered yourself a conservative, or where would you have put yourself on the ideological spectrum?
Well, I know I was born and fully indoctrinated in Democrat ideology. My family is, full Democrat, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. So I understand it. I was born into that type of an environment, fully indoctrinated in it, fully, embracing it.
Right.
And so that was really my background.
Well, what I find from my perspective is that the Democrat Party, and to some degree the Republican Party as well, but specifically the Democrat Party, seems to be at war with itself constantly. If you look at the fact that you've got environmentalists that want to destroy all industrialized kinds of production in many cases, and then you've got the unions that have been promised jobs and benefits, those two areas are in conflict. A lot of times you have people pushing an abortion type of a mentality, and minorities are the big part of the Democrat Party, but they're often the most attacked or affected by abortive policies. And so when you say you were indoctrinated into the Democrat and liberal ideology, help me define which parts of it you were indoctrinated into.
Wholly supported it all, not necessarily purposely, but reflexively. So what that means for me, and how that was really manifested in my own life, was when I went to the booth, it was just look for the Democrats, and our family just voted Democrats and just pull a lever.
Okay.
So it wasn't, I don't think I studied it enough to know really the issues at the time, what I was voting on or not voting on. At some point, it became clear to me that blindly pulling the lever for the D, what that was doing to me as a person of faith and to my community, more importantly.
So it wasn't necessarily policy driven, it was branding driven. It was the familiar brand, and I'm always going to get that one.
Strictly,
okay.
Yes.
Great. And so at this point, you have switched sides of you've gone from riding donkeys to riding elephants in this part of life. What prompted that?
It was really coming to grips with my own faith walk. Essentially, a lot of the, or pretty much all of the Democrat platform didn't align with principally who I am, what I believe in.
Okay.
And I think God lifted the veil and allowed me and my wife to sort of see, what we're doing with our vote,
Okay.
and really began to cause a lot of introspection with us looking at, well, this is principally what I stand for. What am I doing voting this way? And after we went through that, item by item, it was real clear. There was two things that we found out. Number one, it was clear that the Democrat Party did not reflect our personal ideology. Number two, we found that the Democrat Party policies and agenda actually disproportionately harmed communities of color as opposed to helping them.
Now, that's a controversial statement that you've just made.
Well, I wrote a book on it. So,
no.
Yeah, it is a controversial statement, but it's a fact. So,
Right.
part of my background as well is I have a sociology degree from San Jose State, and so I was always interested in taking a look at societal norms and morals and sort of overlaying those types of concepts on certain communities and seeing what the outcomes are over time.
Mm-hmm.
And that really played well into helping me to really begin to discern what's this whole Democrat ideology and what's it doing to communities I care so much about.
Okay, so specifically, can you give me 2 or 3 examples of the harm that you saw that prompted that realignment for you?
Okay, just a couple, 2 or 3 examples. Number one, abortion. Abortion disproportionately harms community of color. It's a fact.
Right.
90+% of Planned Parenthood abortion mills are strategically located in communities of color.
Right.
We represent approximately 12% of the population. Actually, women represent approximately 6% of the population. Childbearing women in the black community represent about 3% of the population, yet we have over 90% of the abortion mills in our community. So that's number one. Number two would be education. Pretty much a lot of people of color who are born and raised in sort of a poor or lower middle class type environment don't have an opportunity to go to some of the better schools and really begin to embrace schools that are not dilapidated, schools that will teach them with high academic standard. And they're pretty much relegated to public school systems. Mm-hmm. Democrats fight tooth and nail to continue to empower public teachers unions, fully relegating Black Americans and Hispanic Americans to the public school system, and not giving parents in of those children choice, that we can actually take our children to better schools and et cetera, and that have higher academic standards, okay, safer schools, and et cetera. So that's number two. Number three would be, I would say number three is probably the energy policies. The Democrats really strongly support supposed green technologies. Essentially, energy prices, especially for the poor people are disproportionately harmed by those types of policies. Democrats know. President Obama knew, he says, look, my energy policies are going to cause energy prices to skyrocket.
Right.
He knew full well that that's going to have a disproportional effect on the poor.
Yes.
And essentially he didn't care. And the Democrats don't care.
Not just from a transportation perspective, but because it also drives up the cost of food and clothing. Anything that needs to get from one place to another gets more costly.
Absolutely everything. So, the cost of living for a poor person now with our current economic conditions is much higher than proportionally than those who are on the higher income scales.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you didn't just go Republican. You actually took it a step further and became part of the Frederick Douglass Foundation, which is a more conservative organization within the Republican arena or ecosystem. Tell us a little bit about how you transitioned to that point.
Yeah, well, so the good news about the Frederick Douglass Foundation, first of all, I wrote a book called Insanity, and it documents sort of my background, sort of Washington and Declaration, Constitution, and the social issues that I talked about. Mm-hmm. And after doing that, I was contacted by the Frederick Douglass Foundation to head up a new charter here in California. Mm-hmm. And so we started the Frederick Douglass Foundation chapter for California. And essentially, I began to learn again about Mr. Frederick Douglass. I had lost contact, again, I was, a lot of that very important history. I was either not paying attention in high school or just didn't care.
It wasn't as relevant at that point in your
Yeah.
life.
So when I actually started reading his story, I found that he is the quintessential American hero and patriot. And essentially, Frederick Douglass type of republicanism is republicanism. That's what the Republican Party should be. In essence, Frederick Douglass was limited government, self-reliance, strict constitutionalist, and strictly supporting the Declaration as well. And a lot of Republicans have moved away from a lot of those core principles. They sort of scoot around the periphery of the Constitution when it's convenient, when it's not. So yeah, in that regard, I'm much more conservative, I guess, than your typical Republican in Washington today.
Well, but also Frederick Douglass's story is so powerful when you look at his birth and being born from a rape.
Oh, incredible.
And growing up in slavery
Right.
and breaking loose and the political power that he wielded.
Right.
And so
Incredible.
it is.
Quintessential American hero and patriot. I mean, for him to raise up from, his background, one man.
Yes.
So, unlike great civil rights heroes who have come up after Frederick Douglass, who may have had hundreds of thousands or millions of people behind them,
Right.
Frederick Douglass was one man.
Yes.
And God used one man at this point in time to help end slavery.
Yes.
Not only just raising him up from that, but fully educating him. He felt that it was a divine appointment he had with God when he would sneak down in the library and teach himself to read. And then his starting a newspaper and becoming, the first black ambassador to Haiti, and then the first black, bank president, and in the inner circle of Lincoln's White House and 4 other Republican presidents.
Yes.
So he was incredible.
And a lot of the history that people don't understand is we're told that, or people believe that the black community has always been Democrat. However,
Right.
that's a relatively recent development.
Very recent. 1964, 1965 is when that shift took place. In the 1800s, it was all Republican. And again, going back to the Frederick Douglass story, what I did find is that one of his more, I think, poignant quotes was, "I'm a black dyed-in-the-wool Republican because it's the only party of freedom and progress." That, really clued me in that there was a lot of rich history for blacks in the Republican Party. The NAACP was started by Republicans, black Republicans, Ida B. Wells, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, folks like that are, stalwarts of black history. Were, NAACP was started as a Republican institution.
Interesting.
And other institutions. I mean, if you look throughout the 1800s, all the way up until 1964, 65, blacks were across the board firmly rooted in the Republican, because the Republican Party was actually started as an abolitionist movement, right?
Exactly.
So it was started by abolitionists, Whigs, and Northern Democrats, essentially.
Right.
And from that, they started a Republican Party. It was clearly an anti-slavery slate. And that's what they ran on, and that's what every black, then and now should be in wholehearted agreement with.
Right.
Right.
So then from Frederick Douglass, you've now started another organization, and I know you've written multiple books, you're active and out there in a lot of different ways, but this new movement, the Vote God 2012 movement that you're trying to get out into the community, tell us a little bit about that and what motivated you to start that.
So what essentially it's the statistics are startling as it relates to people of faith and voting. There were some statistics that came out last year. I think there was some Gallup statistics that pointed to approximately 75% of evangelical Christians don't vote on any given election.
Yes.
And they broke it down with 50% of evangelical Christians are actually registered to vote, and of the people that are registered, only 50% of those vote. That equates to approximately 25% vote on any given election, which means that 75% on any given election don't vote.
Right.
So, we can complain as people of faith in general and as party, hacks in general about the condition of America. But the reality is I like what a Ugandan pastor said, is the condition of society is the report card of the church. And in the United States, that's especially true, since we have such a large percentage of people of faith, 80% plus, who belong to some kind of faith. And the condition of America is the report card of people of faith. And so what this Vote God movement is all about is to activate, mobilize people of faith. We can literally turn California around like that immediately. In this election in November 2012, if we just vote our faith, we can turn America, the trajectory of America, we can turn it like that. We can change the White House, we can change Congress, we can change the entire map for America if we as people of faith, number one, just vote, and number two, vote our faith.
Okay. So give me some of the core tenets of what you're trying to put together through the Vote God.
Yeah, so Vote God, a lot of people don't really, they say, well, that's a little bit nebulous. What does Vote God mean? And, surely God is not running. And we know that. Every man, every woman in any race, whether it be local, state, or national, are imperfect. And God is not running. That's true. But the reality is that there are people that are more aligned with God and His principles than some of those others that are running for the same office that are not.
Right.
So what we're advocating is that we just vote for people, regardless of party and regardless for all that stuff that we normally take into consideration, whether they're charismatic, sexy, historic, of the same color or different. That's besides the point.
Right.
People of faith have a responsibility and a command by God. If you read Exodus 18:20, He commanded people of faith to choose their representatives and choose them based on godly character, fear of God, and whether they can rightly judge, and et cetera, et cetera. So where I was going with that is what Vote God looks at is three primary criteria: vote God's word, vote God's principles, and vote God's truth. Okay. So whoever is more closely aligned with that is who you vote for. So for instance, in the national race right now, we have a president. We know his fruit. We have, going on 4 years of where he is, where he stands on life. We know where he stands on homosexual marriage or redefinition of marriage, God's definition of marriage. We know where he stands on economic stewardship, and we know where he stands on religious freedom. So those are just four simple criteria. We know where he stands. Right. And so basically you just say, okay, is where he stands more closely or less closely aligned with God? Whoever is more closely aligned with God on those issues, pull the lever for him. Mm-hmm. Right. So we know if you read Psalms 139, what God feels about life, right? Before I placed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. I know every hair on your head. Those types of things. Right. It's all in Psalms 139 and other Psalms. We know what God feels about His definition for marriage. We know what God feels about economic stewardship. It's throughout the Bible is replete with stories about how to run communities and economic stewardship throughout the community. And we know what God feels about religious freedom. Clear examples are His intervention with Moses, His intervention with Daniel, His intervention with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, His intervention with the establishment of the New Testament church. So God is, definitive about religious freedom. And we just compare now this other candidate B, with the fruit that we see from candidate A, and whoever is more closely aligned with God, that's who we pull for.
Right.
So we don't consider anything else.
But that requires an educated electorate and people to actually pay attention, which was what the Founding Fathers said would be necessary to remain in this constitutional republic in the first place. Right. People actually have to be involved and know and assess their representatives.
Right. So we've got some simple data points that you go to votegod2012.com,
right.
www.votegod2012.com.
Right.
And we've got 1-minute videos to take you through what those things are, right? We've got resources out there. You can download PDFs and you could become very, very educated. But even if you don't have time to do that, you could still just say, well, where does President Obama feel about life? Does it align with God's word? If it doesn't, check. Okay. Where does he feel about this? Where does he feel about religious freedom? Right. It's clear. And then we just check and we look at where the other candidate feels, and that's it.
So what would you say to the person who's out there, the atheist or the theophobe in some cases, that are afraid of anything that has to do with faith being brought into the public square, and saying, well, can't they just be a good person? Why God, as opposed to just looking at their character?
Well, first of all, this is not a movement that's targeted at anybody else other than the 30 to 40 million people that are people of faith, self-professed evangelicals and perhaps other faiths, that are sitting on the pews that are not registered to vote. This is a movement that is strictly targeted towards them. We're not considering those who are already voting. We're not considering right or left politics, those people that are comfortably participating in that. We want to go after the 40 to 50 or 30 to 50 million Christians that are not doing anything. that don't recognize that God has a demand on their life, a mandate that they actually participate in our political system so they can help change for God. So for the atheists, I'd say, look, this is not about you. Fine, we're not advocating that government get involved in this and government dictate how people vote, whether they vote God or not. That's not the point. We're going after individuals who already self-professed that they are of a person of faith, and we're just trying to reconnect them to the facts about their faith. All faiths are pretty clear about what God says about participating in governance and politics, and it's there, it's in writing. And a lot of people have been disconnect. We basically have become unmoored from the principles that actually make us people of faith. And what we're trying to do is just connect people again back to those foundational principles that actually make them who they are, a person of faith.
Well, thank you for sharing your passion and a little bit about your mission. One more time, VoteGod2012.com.
VoteGod2012.com.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
All right, thank you.
And at this point, we'll be taking a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment with our underwriter, the Conservative Forum. Thank you. And welcome back to The Right Side. We're now joined by Howard Myers, the president of the Conservative Forum. And they are the underwriter of the show, so we'd like to give them a few minutes to tell us a little bit about the history of the forum and what's coming next. Howard?
Thank you. I'd like to appreciate the opportunity. The Conservative Forum is a group of, as you might imagine, conservatives. It was formed about 8 years ago. Started out with about 10 people that got together at a town hall meetup, and were kind of surprised that there were that many conservatives in the valley. It kind of grew, and in 2008 we had a surge in membership for some reason. And we're currently at, we finished last year with 587 members. We're currently at 522. We expect to finish up the year at around 670, 700. But the point is, these are, it isn't a Republican or a political party. In fact, one of the two co-founders was a Democrat, one was a Republican. There's conservative ideals, and we're basically founded on education. And they are trying to educate people in the principles of liberty. If you allow me, I'll very quickly read the mission statement, very short. The mission of the Conservative Forum of Silicon Valley is to promote the principles of American liberty through education. As a recognized conservative, nonpartisan umbrella organization in the Bay Area, we are the place for conservatives from Silicon Valley and beyond to gather, share ideas, and become empowered. This is exactly what we do. We have speakers once a month. We meet at the Portuguese Hall at 432 Steerland Road. We meet the first Tuesday of every month except July. It's the second Tuesday, allowing the celebration of the 4th. Doors typically open at 6:15. The program starts at 7 o'clock. And we have some very well-known speakers. Last month, we had like 400 people came out to hear David Horowitz. And part of the education is that our scholarship, our Constitution discussion group began a scholarship program this year, and we awarded at the last meeting 2 scholarships of $1,000 each to a couple of local high school students. The way they got that scholarship was to write an essay on a constitutional principle that made America great. So it was just furthering the education. And like I say, we've been around for a while. The next few months we have some more exciting speakers coming up. I have Timothy Sandifer from the Pacific Legal Foundation. He's coming in June. July we have Tom Tancredo. August we have Jack Cashel. September we have John Fund. And October we have Jesse Lee Peterson. I mean, it's an all-star lineup.
And in addition to the speeches that people can come and see, a couple of the other programs you have available are Constitution classes.
Right, we have a Constitution discussion group. There's no charge. It meets, I think it's the second Tuesday. I'm sorry, the second, might be the first Monday. I forget exactly, but it's out there on the website. It'll tell you when they meet. But there's no charge for that. But to me, one of the things that's really important that we do is that as part of the meeting, we've been doing this for several years. We have tables that are available in the back of the hall. It's a fairly good-sized hall. In the back of the hall, we have tables set up where people, we call exhibitors because there's such a eclectic collection. What would you call them? We have grassroots organizations such as the Tea Party or the 912, the Minutemen. We can have candidates from any political office. We do not control who takes those tables. We let the market dictate, because if somebody takes a table and they aren't very popular, they won't come back.
Right.
And we don't charge for those tables. We'll have 14 to 18 different groups represented at that, and through people get a chance to talk to them, get literature, interact with them, network with them before the meeting and after the meeting. Right. And I kind of think of that as like a carnival. When it's a carnival of ideas. I mean, you go in there, it's just everything. Anything and everything is there, and it's free speech at its best.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be kind of a carnival. Sometimes it's a zoo. Depends on who the speaker is and who the people are in the back, right?
It's a lot of fun. It really is. That's why we have so many members and so many people that turn out, because it's a lot of fun, but it's engaging. Mm-hmm. And the ideas there they're free ideas, and it's conservative. It's not partisan.
Right.
So, we have quite a few different people there.
Excellent. So tell us again the address, the details, and the website.
The address is at 432 Steerland Road in Mountain View, and this is right off of Shoreline Boulevard. Again, we meet at the second
Tuesday of the month.
The second Tuesday, first Tuesday of every month except July. And July is the second Tuesday. And the address on the web is theconservativeforum.com.
Well, thank you very much, Howard, for underwriting the show along with the Conservative Forum, and we appreciate that opportunity to work with you.
Thank you.
And in closing, we just would like to remind people, as our previous guest, Kevin McGary, had stated, it's important for people to vote their conscience and make sure that the politicians that they're electing are in alignment with their views. It requires an educated electorate, but it's important. The country is at stake, and if you're not voting and you're not registered, regardless if it's a vote God message or a vote something else message, you're actually doing yourself and the country a disservice by not having your voice heard. So we ask that you get educated, you get registered if you're not, and you get out there and vote June 5th and again in November when the general election takes place. On that note, we hope you have a great evening. You've been watching The Right Side. I'm Chris Pareja. We look forward to seeing you again soon, and have a great night.